To appreciate the significance of Goa's liberation, we must first understand its historical context. Nestled on the west coast of India, Goa has always held strategic importance due to its location. This tiny state once formed part of the expansive Mauryan Empire, which thrived from the 4th to the 3rd century BCE. Centuries later, Goa fell under the rule of the Sultanate of Delhi and the Bahmani Sultanate. The landscape of Goa changed drastically in the 15th century with the arrival of the Portuguese. They established a lasting colony, marking the beginning of a new era for Goa. Under the Portuguese rule, Goa underwent significant socio-economic changes. Christianity was introduced and became the major religion. New crops like tobacco, cashew, and pineapple were also introduced, transforming Goa's agrarian economy. With this backdrop, we set the stage for Goa's fight for freedom. As the winds of independence swept across India, the seeds of liberation were sown in Goa as well. The 40s and 50s were a time of great change in Goa. The Goans, inspired by India's struggle for freedom, began to voice their dissent against Portuguese rule. The streets of Goa vibrated with the rhythmic chants of peaceful protesters, and the air was thick with the spirit of rebellion. They demanded their rights, their freedom, and an end to the tyranny of the Portuguese regime. Among the many freedom fighters who led the charge was Dr. Ram Manohar Lohia, a staunch advocate for Goa's liberation. Lohia's impassioned speeches and undying resolve ignited the flame of resistance among the Goans. However, his activities did not go unnoticed. In an attempt to quell the rising tide of rebellion, the Portuguese authorities arrested Lohia, a move that only served to fuel the fire of the liberation movement. Meanwhile, the world was watching. The international community began to exert pressure on Portugal, urging them to decolonize and grant independence to their colonies, including Goa. This was a time of great upheaval, as nations across the world were shedding the shackles of colonial rule. The winds of change were blowing, and they were blowing in Goa's favor. Back in India, the government was making diplomatic strides. They were engaged in negotiations with the Portuguese, advocating for Goa's independence. These discussions were marked by a sense of urgency and a commitment to liberate Goa from the clutches of colonial rule. The Indian government was firm in its stance. Goa was a part of India, and it was high time it was returned to its rightful owners. Despite these efforts, Portuguese remained unyielding, leading India to take decisive action. The stage was set for a showdown, a battle for freedom that would change the course of Goa's history forever. The liberation movement had reached a boiling point, and the time for peaceful negotiations was running out. The fight for Goa's freedom was about to take a dramatic turn. In December 1961, the Indian government decided that enough was enough. It was time to liberate Goa from Portuguese rule, and the wheels were set in motion for an audacious military operation codenamed Operation Vijay. This was not a decision taken lightly, but the Indian government was resolute in its pursuit of reunification with Goa. The operation was executed with precision and decisiveness. Indian forces launched a multi-pronged attack on Goa by air, sea, and land. The Portuguese, although determined, were outmatched and outnumbered. The fighting was intense, yet short-lived. Within 2 days, the Portuguese Governor-General Vassalo da Silva surrendered, marking a swift and decisive victory for the Indian forces. Despite the intensity of the operation, casualties were minimal on both sides, a testament to the strategic planning and execution of the Indian military. The formal annexation of Goa into the Indian Union took place on December 19, 1961. The tricolour flag was hoisted, replacing the Portuguese standard, and the Indian national anthem echoed through the streets of Goa. The moment was significant not just for Goa but for the entire nation. It marked the end of Portuguese rule in India and the reunification of Goa with its motherland. And thus, after more than 4 centuries of foreign rule, Goa finally became a part of independent India. It was a moment of pride and joy, a testament to India's resolve and commitment to its people and its territorial integrity. Goa's liberation was a pivotal event in India's post-independence history. Let's revisit the main points. We began with Goa's historical context under Portuguese rule for over 4 centuries. We then moved on to the peaceful protests and diplomatic efforts made by Indians to reclaim Goa. Despite these measures, it was the final military action, Operation Vijay, which finally resulted in Goa's liberation. The story of Goa's liberation serves as a reminder of the relentless human spirit and its quest for freedom and self-determination.
हमारे चैनल को सब्सक्राइब कीजिए और साथ ही बेल आइकन दबाएं, जिससे समय पर नोटिफिकेशन आपको मिलती रहे। आपका एक लाइक हमें प्रोत्साहित करता है जिससे कि हम नई वीडियो बनाएं। थैंक्स फॉर योर सपोर्ट।